There are moments in life when a message lands not just in your mind, but in your soul. And if you are here, watching this, hearing these words, then this is one of those moments. Not because I or anyone else decided it, but because life arranged it. Alan Watts, the philosopher who turned silence into wisdom and paradox into clarity, often spoke about timing not as a schedule, but as a rhythm. A cosmic rhythm that unfolds not in calendars, but in consciousness. Watts believed that nothing ever happens too early or too late. It happens precisely when it's supposed to. And more importantly, it finds you when you're ready to hear it. So maybe this message isn't new. Maybe it's been whispered to you 1,000 times in the rustling of leaves, in the quiet of insomnia, in the eyes of strangers. But now, only now, you are finally still enough to receive it. We've been taught to chase life, to plan it, to grip it like a project. We fill our days with goals and to-do lists, hoping that one day some message, some insight, some moment will arrive and make it all make sense. But Alan Watts would ask, what if the thing you've been waiting for is already here, but you're too busy trying to get somewhere else to notice it? We live as if life is some grand destination, a mountaintop we're climbing toward. But every step is already the summit. Every breath is the arrival, and yet we resist this simplicity. We complicate it. Why? Because we've been conditioned to believe that meaning comes from struggle, that wisdom is earned through effort, that peace is something we must achieve. But Watts would say the opposite. Peace comes when you stop trying to achieve it. Wisdom dawns when you stop chasing it. Meaning arises not from effort, but from awareness.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
So let's ask a deeper question. What if the timing of your life isn't broken? What if every delay, every detour, every so-called failure was not a mistake, but a recalibration? We all carry this subtle fear that we're falling behind our peers, behind our potential, behind some invisible version of ourselves we were supposed to become. But behind what, exactly? According to whose clock? Watts would laugh at our obsession with timelines. He'd remind you that the universe has no deadlines. A flower doesn't rush to bloom. A wave doesn't stress about crashing. A cat doesn't worry if it's fulfilling its feline potential. And yet, here we are measuring our value in progress reports and comparing our path to others as if life were a race. But what if your path isn't linear? What if it spirals? What if the detour is the way? This brings us to the heart of the paradox. When we finally stop trying to control the timing of our lives, that's when life begins to flow. Watts would call this the art of wu-wei effortless action. It's not laziness. It's alignment. It's not apathy. It's attunement. You stop swimming against the current and start floating with it. And suddenly you find yourself in the right places, meeting the right people, hearing the right words, not because you forced it, but because you finally became available to it. Your readiness summoned it. You didn't need to chase the message. The message found you. But only because you stopped hiding behind expectations, behind roles, behind the noise of your own striving. So let me ask you, what if everything in your life had to unfold exactly the way it did, just to bring you to this moment now? And now, here you are, listening, breathing, maybe questioning, maybe remembering. And that's the turning point Watts always guided us toward, not some intellectual breakthrough, but a felt shift, a return to presence. Because the truth is, we don't need more information. We need more attention. We don't need more answers. We need to listen more deeply. And when we do, something magical happens. The world begins to speak through symbols, synchronicities, chance meetings, odd dreams, quiet instincts. It's as if reality itself becomes a mirror for your inner state, whispering in every moment, "This is it. This is what you were meant to feel. This is what you were meant to see." So why does it feel like it took so long to get here? Why does it feel like the message only now makes sense? Because you weren't ready. And that's not an insult. That's a gift. Because readiness has nothing to do with effort and everything to do with surrender. You didn't need to push harder. You needed to soften. You needed to break open in all the right places. You needed to live enough life to finally understand what these words mean, not just in your brain, but in your bones. Watts would say that life is not something you figure out. It's something you tune into. Like a radio frequency that plays only when you're quiet enough, still enough, present enough to hear it. And maybe, just maybe, that's happening right now. The message has always been here: why timing is not what you think it is. We often think of timing as a kind of cosmic coincidence, something outside of us, something that happens to us. But Alan Watts would say timing isn't something external, it's something internal. It's not that the universe waits for you to be ready, it's that the moment you're ready, the universe reveals what was already there. In other words, it's not the message that changes. It's you. The wisdom has always been humming in the background, like a song playing on a distant radio station. You just didn't have the volume turned up yet. Or maybe you were tuned into a different frequency, one of fear or ambition or survival. And now, for reasons you might not even fully understand, you've shifted frequencies. You've become still enough, open enough, silent enough to finally hear what's been playing all along. Think about this. How many times in your life have you heard the same advice over and over again, and it never landed? And then one day you hear it again, maybe in a different way. Maybe from a stranger, maybe in a moment when your defenses are down and suddenly it clicks. It hits you, not in your mind, but in your chest. That's not coincidence. That's timing. Not in the clock on the wall sense, but in the soul sense. Watts would say that we are not separate from the universe. We are the universe experiencing itself. So when something finally finds you at the right time, it's not that the universe has arrived. It's that you have. You've arrived in yourself. You've dropped the mask. You've cracked open. And now, the message can finally enter not as information, but as transformation. There's a reason the same book will read differently at age 20 and age 50. There's a reason a quote that once sounded like a fortune cookie now feels like a thunderbolt. It's because you've changed. And in that change, you've unlocked a new dimension of meaning. Watts would say that reality is layered like a hologram. And every time you grow, every time you suffer, every time you surrender, you gain access to a deeper layer. So the message wasn't missing, it was simply waiting for you to be able to receive it. That's why trying to rush spiritual insight is like trying to force a seed to bloom. You can scream at it, you can beg it, but it will open when it opens, not a second sooner, and not a second too late. So here's a radical thought. What if nothing in your life has ever been late? What if the pain you endured, the mistakes you made, the paths you didn't take, they didn't delay your growth? They created it. We tend to think that we wasted time when we weren't aligned, when we were lost, when we were chasing the wrong things. But Watts would tell you there's no such thing as wasted time, because all time is now. Every moment, no matter how chaotic, how confusing, how dark, is part of the unfolding. The lesson doesn't just exist at the end of the struggle. The struggle is the lesson. The message isn't waiting at the finish line. It's laced into every step of the path, even the ones that felt like detours, especially those. And that brings us to the most humbling realization of all. You don't control when the message finds you. You don't control when the shift happens. You can prepare. You can reflect. You can practice being present. But the moment of awakening, that's grace. That's mystery. That's the part of life that refuses to be scheduled. And that's a good thing, because it means life is not a formula. It's a living, breathing intelligence. It knows what it's doing. It's not trying to punish you. It's trying to shape you. And sometimes the shaping requires waiting. Sometimes you have to be brought to your knees before you can truly hear. Sometimes silence is the only teacher loud enough to break through the noise. So I'll ask you something that might change the way you look at your entire past. What if everything you thought was a delay was actually preparation? What if the heartbreak was softening you? What if the failure was humbling you? What if the loneliness was teaching you how to listen? We don't like those answers. We want clarity now. We want meaning now. But Watts would remind you that life isn't in a rush. The forest doesn't hurry. The moon doesn't stress. The tide doesn't second-guess itself. And yet everything arrives exactly when it's meant to. So why are you so convinced that your timing is off? Why do you think you're behind? The truth is, you are exactly where you need to be. Not because everything is perfect. Not because you have it all figured out. But because this moment, this very moment, is the one through which the next message will arrive. Not later. Not once you're ready. Not once you fix yourself. Now. Always now. It's not the message that finds you. It's you that finds the message. By paying attention. By being still. By listening to the silence behind the sound. Watts said, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play." And so, here's the challenge. Can you stop trying to chase meaning and allow it to find you? Because it will. It already is. You are the moment why the right time is always now. There's a reason this found you now and not a minute earlier. Not because the message changed, but because you did. Or more precisely, because you became conscious enough to recognize that the moment you've been waiting for is this one. Not the one after the next promotion. Not the one after you heal completely. Not the one when you become enlightened. just this. Alan Watts would tell us that the biggest illusion we live under is the idea that we exist in time, that we are moving through it, like a train on a track. But time, to Watts, was not a straight line. It was a now, a living, breathing present that contains everything. And the problem is, we're almost never in it. We're always reaching forward or glancing backward, never fully arriving in the place we never left. This is why so many of us feel fragmented. We're physically here, but mentally elsewhere, or emotionally elsewhere. We live in the future, constantly preparing, planning, projecting. Or we live in the past, regretting, rewriting, reliving. But Watts would say that the only time anything real happens is now. Because now is not just a moment in a sequence. Now is the only moment that exists. The past is memory. The future is imagination. What you have, what you've ever had, is this breath, this heartbeat, this awareness, watching these words form in your mind as you listen. So why do we resist it? Why do we postpone our presence? Because presence requires vulnerability. It requires surrender. It means dropping the story of who we think we are and touching the raw, unfiltered reality of who we actually are. And that can be terrifying. The ego doesn't want now. The ego wants control. It wants guarantees. It wants to know what's next. But Watts would say that's like trying to stand in a river and demand the water stop moving. Life is movement. It is change. And when you resist now, you're resisting the only place where life can actually be felt. You're resisting yourself. So the question becomes, what would it take for you to stop waiting for your life to begin? What would it take for you to realize it already has? This moment is not a placeholder. It's not a rehearsal. It's not a stepping stone to something more important. It is the thing. The awakening you've been searching for is not a future event. It's a shift in perception that can happen in an instant, right now, when you stop looking for the moment and realize you are the moment. That's not just poetry, that's physics. That's mysticism. That's Watts. You are not a thing in time. You are time itself expressed as a pulse of awareness. And when you fully meet this moment, not just conceptually, but viscerally, you realize something stunning. There is nothing missing. There never was. The sense of lack, of not yet, of not enough, it was all a dream or a trance. And now you're waking up. But here's the twist. Waking up doesn't mean escaping life. It means entering it fully. It means tasting your coffee like it's sacred. It means feeling grief without numbing it. It means walking down the street without needing to get somewhere. Because suddenly you are the somewhere. You're not on the way. You are the way. Watts used to say, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. The more you try to fix your life, the more you stir the mud. But when you stop, when you just sit, breathe, and be, it all starts to settle. Clarity arises. Not because you chased it, but because you finally stopped running from it. So let's come full circle. This video, this message, this moment, it's not special because it contains hidden wisdom. It's special because you're finally here for it. You've stopped long enough to hear what life has been whispering all along. You don't need to chase the right time. You are the right time. You are the intersection of all that has ever been and all that will ever be. You are the point of contact between the infinite and the finite. And when you allow yourself to fully exist in that knowing, the world opens. Not because it changed, but because you did. And if you forget this tomorrow, that's okay. If you fall back into rushing, comparing, striving, that's human. Just remember, life isn't punishing you. It's just waiting, patiently, lovingly, like a cat perched on a windowsill, watching, not judging. And when you're ready again, the message will return. Not because it left, but because you're ready to hear it again. And maybe next time, it will say something new. Or maybe it will say the same thing it always has. This will find you at the right time. And the right time is always now.